Denmark's mills are one of our most important discoveries ever, and today they lead the way in the green transition. But how did we actually become a nation of mill builders? And how did we go from the very first simple water mills to the energy-producing giants that stand everywhere today? My name is Emma Poska, and I'm a historian. Our shared past and how it has shaped us has always fascinated me. And that's why I love mills, because they tell the story of how we have developed as human beings. The Queen is coming! The Queen is coming! In this series, I follow in the footsteps of 1,000 years of mill history to understand how much Danish mills have shaped our lives. And then I want to find out how we became one of the biggest when it comes to the development of renewable energy. This is how it all began, back in the early days, when we had to turn grain into flour using saddle querns. In the Viking Age, the hand quern then arrived. But archaeological finds suggest that the first watermills may have already existed here.
We must assume that the Vikings who went on raids, for example, to England, saw plenty of mills, because at that time England was plastered with watermills, and there's also much to suggest that some were built here during the Viking Age.
Whether the Vikings had watermills or just used hand querns, we know they ground grain on a large scale. The reason why grinding grain is so important for development in Denmark is due to one very fundamental thing. Namely, that grain has a hard shell that must be broken or destroyed so that we can absorb nutrients from it. With the first querns and mills, Danes could get nutrition and energy into their bodies more easily, with less work. The first efficiency drive is underway. In this episode, I look at the mills that existed before electric wind turbines, the historical mills. I have therefore teamed up with Lisa Andersen, Denmark's leading expert in mill technology.
It's commonly said that a mill can replace 100 men. I think it's hard for people to understand how much time was spent grinding grain before water mills.
She has selected 3 mills that will show me the most important stages of development before modern windmills. These are Cistercian monks, and with them, water mills truly began to appear in Denmark. They immigrated from Central Europe, bringing a new water mill technology with them. A technology they used to build mill facilities at Esrum, Næstved, Odense, and Sorø.
The monks who came here, well, they knew things that had never been seen before. Like, for example, how to calculate the slope of the terrain. They were even able to take the curvature of the earth into account. I mean, that's quite special.
Brothers, let's go now, everyone.
Over time, it wasn't just the monks who were building the water mills. Throughout the Middle Ages, water mills appeared all across the country, and that developed society. So, we're on our way to the first mill and the first technological revolution. What kind of mill have you chosen, Lisa?
Yes, we're going to see a watermill, and I've chosen Kaleco watermill, of the watermills we've preserved. They have, of course, been modernized to keep up with the times and the competition. But at Kaleco watermill, it's such that when we reach the late 1600s, it's as if development comes to a standstill. So what you'll see is actually a mill mechanism that looks like they did around 1660.
Kaleco Mill is located near Faaborg on Funen and was likely built way back in King Valdemar Atterdag's time in the mid-1300s. Is it down there?
Yes, there's the watermill. Yes, there are actually two.
Oh, no way. It's from the elf gang.
It is from the elf gang, yes.
Wow, one's whole childhood and all that. I mean, it's just... Sorry, Lisa. Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Yes, thank you. Hi. It's really beautiful.
A lovely place. Yes, it's nice here.
So if I were a farmer and I had some grain with me, what would I do now?
Well, then you would, for example, come in this way. See, this has functioned as well, a completely ordinary farm and house, too, and a home for a family. So now we're entering a farmhouse like that. But here we have the miller's room. It served as a waiting room for the customers, you could call them, or those who came to have their grain ground. It is actually the case that in the Danish law of 1683, it states that things said in the miller's room are not taken as seriously in, for example, a jury case as things said in more serious places. Because what you got while sitting here waiting was that you got a little brandy and maybe some beer. This was where you sat and talked about everything going on in the village.
A little gossip?
A lot of gossip.
Yeah, okay.
With law, the land shall be built and maintained. However, if everyone were truly content with what is rightfully their own and allowed others to enjoy exactly the same right, then in truth, no law would ever be necessary.
In 1241, Valdemar the Victorious writes the Jutlandic law, and in it, it states that the milling trade is free, meaning everyone may own and operate a mill. But because it is so expensive to build mills, it means that in reality, only the king, the nobility, and the church own and build them. And that also means that those who want to use the mills, they have to pay for it. And they certainly will.
No stream may flow into the sea without first having served the land.
This quote belongs to Valdemar Atterdag. He quickly sees the economic opportunities in mills. In fact, the mill tax becomes such an important source of income for the kings that now a royal license is required to operate mills. In that way, the peasants must use their local mill, and thus the miller can take a toll from the peasants and pay his tax. Sitzel, if I were to have my grain ground, what would I have to pay?
You pay with some of the grain?
Yes?
Yes. This here is a toll cup, and it is almost a litre.
Okay.
And when you come with your sack, you get it ground, and then the miller takes a toll cup. And that is then his payment. And from that payment, he then has to pay something to the king. Now look here, Emma.
Mm-hmm.
Your flour sack, it is then brought up here. Mm-hmm. And through this door, which leads us up to the attic, just over here. Now let's go ahead and try me first, shall we?
Up on... Oh.
It is oak wood, you know.
Yes, indeed.
From the Middle Ages. There is nothing that lasts better than that. I think we won't go much further than this. But then you simply pour the grain down into here. And then we'll go downstairs to see what happens next.
Mm-hmm.
See, this is the cool part.
What?
Now, you remember the wheel outside?
Mm-hmm.
And it's spinning around.
Yes.
Now you can see the water.
Yes, yes.
Yes. And that turns this big shaft here. It's called an axle. It has this large wheel, which is called a cog wheel, and that drives the wallower, which is the small one. It has a shaft that goes upwards.
Upwards.
And that spins the runner, which is the top millstone up here. This is the runner, right here. A huge, heavy stone spinning around. And you can see in the middle, there's the part holding it, and that's the shaft from the wallower.
Oh, right.
The grain goes down the chute right here, then it is gradually fed out and thoroughly ground. And after that, it falls down and out into the sieve.
Down there, yes.
Into your sack here.
Yes. Well, I think it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, but it's also because it's not just the mill. I mean, there's also the whole story of how it frees up the labor of 100 people and the mill room in there. There are some funny stories connected to it too, right? I mean, it just tells so much about the development of Denmark. Hi, Lisa. So I've been inside to see the first mill, and it's absolutely beautiful.
If we walk a bit further over here, we can get a better look at the principle behind it. You can see the water running down into these bucket-shaped paddles.
Yes.
The water should ideally stay in those buckets as long as possible so the weight can do its work, giving the wheel maximum power. That's what enables us to use the forces of nature.
But watermills taught humans for the first time how to harness the forces of nature. And that's the basic idea of all mills, even modern ones. Over the next several hundred years, watermills would play a major role in Denmark's development. And for those with the means, there was a lot of money to be made. Most people know Christian IV, but fewer know his mother, Queen Sophie. Sophie was banished to a dower house on Falster when her husband, Frederick II, died. There, she managed to become one of Europe's wealthiest women. But how did she do it? Well, by investing in the estates she was given.
I'm looking for millers.
She had several of the mills belonging to the dower house renovated and upgraded, and then she had at least one large new watermill built. So, she made the work faster and easier for her people, thereby increasing productivity, and she kept everything on a very tight leash.
It looks very good.
When Sophie ends up becoming one of Europe's wealthiest women, it's partly because she uses the latest technology and because she focuses on efficiency and the mills. Lisa, we're on our way to Samsø to look at a type of mill that appeared after watermills.
Yes, we're going to see a post mill. It's such an exciting design because you have a mill house. Inside the mill house, you have the machinery, and that entire structure hangs on the post. The post is a very heavy oak trunk. If you said today that you wanted to build an engine room with a power source and put it on top of a pillar, people would say it was impossible. But you'll see that it is possible.
Well, there it is.
Yes, that's the Brøndby post mill.
And why is it that you've chosen this one, Lisa?
Well, we had 18 options because there are 18 post mills here, but that one is probably the oldest.
What's the technological difference between a post mill and a watermill?
Well, apart from the fact that the watermill has a water wheel and the windmill has sails,
Yes, well, let me see.
there really isn't that much of a difference.
Brøndby Mill on Samsø originally comes from another island, namely Endelev, and came to Samsø in 1683. The mill is usually maintained by a mill guild led by Johannes Strøm, who has worked with mills all his life.
Now we're winding.
Now we're winding?
Yes, right into the wind.
And Johannes, what does winding actually mean?
It means to turn. It's mill terminology.
Oh, is it the whole mill that you turn?
Yes, the whole house around. It's about here. See, here we have the post in the middle,
Yes.
so it rotates on that part. Well, we've got the mill wound into the wind now.
Mm-hmm.
And what we need to do now is this break up there, so now we'll go up and release it,
Yes, okay.
and then we hope there's enough wind for it to turn around. So now I'm releasing the brake by,
And that's the one.
yes, what I'm doing now is releasing it. Now the mill should be free, it should be able to run.
Yes. And what's happening, Johannes?
Well, I don't really know, to be honest.
No, okay, yeah.
I just need to take a look at it. And there's just too little wind right now for what we need. It might actually be a good idea for us to add another set of boards so that they do not end up pulling any more than they already are.
Yes.
There's not enough wind. Please put on all of the boards.
The problem is that there isn't enough wind, so they're putting some boards on the mill so that it can catch a bit more wind. I've been looking forward to seeing it quite a lot, so it would be really annoying if it didn't run. Well, if it goes completely wrong, then They can put sails on the wings just like you do with a ship.
If sails were to be put on now and they hang here,
Yes.
on this piece here,
Yeah.
it's not working
I can see that it's not running.
as it should.
Yes. Is something happening now?
Yes.
Well, what do you think of it?
Insanely fascinating.
Yes.
What is actually the technological breakthrough of such a post mill?
You've seen inside that the mechanism looks like the mechanism in a water mill.
Yes.
So what's special is those wings which transmit the power from the wind and then into the mill mechanism itself.
With the post mill, we learn to use the wind as power, and the mills are no longer dependent on being by streams and rivers. Kronborg, the entrance to the Øresund. Historically, there has always been conflict here over the ships that came sailing out here. And in times of conflict and war, the need arises for the mills to produce something other than flour, namely weapons. Hammer Mølle here is located a few kilometers from Elsinore and Kronborg. It becomes part of a system of 8 water mills, which already under Christian IV were used for more than grinding grain. This mill here has never actually made flour, but instead produced weapons, specifically gun barrels.
The first mills we have are all grain mills, but it's quickly discovered that they can be used as a kind of universal machine. Instead of just having a pair of stones rotating, you can get an up and down motion or even a back and forth motion. And then you can imagine a giant hammer, which you can then set to strike. Instead of standing there with a sledgehammer and hitting an anvil, you can now do it with the help of water power.
With the mills, we've managed to streamline and mechanize a lot of different crafts. There are hammer mills, grinding mills, boring mills, paper mills, fulling mills, and stamping mills. The mills are, and to a large extent, follow the development. Lisa, we've now reached the 3rd technological breakthrough. So why did you choose this particular windmill?
Yes, we're at Ringsted Windmill, and I chose it because it's a really good representative of the last generation of grain windmills built in Denmark. It's what is known as a Dutch mill. What's common to all Dutch mills is, first of all, that here you don't have to turn the whole mill like you did with the Watermill.
Yes.
Here you only turn the cap. The other thing that's common is the star wheel, and the star wheel was a real revolution. You can have many more grinders and machines connected to it.
Hi, Morten.
Hi.
Hi. Well, we're not really allowed to, but then...
No, we're not.
No, we're not.
So you can come in and see what we have here. That's what the gallery is for. All the maneuvering for the mill takes place here on the gallery, right? This mill here, it got the latest technology back in the 1930s.
Oh.
That's when it got the fantail, which we can see right above us. It's the one that constantly ensures the sails face the wind direction, and that means now the mill turns itself according to the wind. So it always faces where the wind is coming from, so the mill doesn't stop every time. So that's the latest thing, right? And it also got shutter sails. In the old days, it was canvas that was on the sails.
Yes, yes, yes.
Now it's made with shutters, and I control that from here with the double chain. Whether they should be open or closed, and I could do that while the mill was still working. So that was a big step forward for the mills.
Yes, that's clever. It's really clever.
Then you hoist it up here. Then you just pour the grain down here into the grinder. This grain here has just been crushed once.
Yes.
And the grain goes down here in the middle.
Yeah. It's impressive to see how it can still run, even though it's so old. You can really smell that it's wood against wood running against each other in here. And also stone against stone. It's super cool. Some has been ground there.
That's it. We've ground a bit here.
The technological heart here in the mill is the so-called spur wheel.
When the sails go around, the spur wheel goes around. So the spur wheel, that's basically the main drive you have, right?
Because the spur wheel in the middle of the ceiling is so large, you get a gearing that makes it possible to connect several other gears at the same time. And each of those gears then drives millstones in the mill.
If it was really windy, very windy weather, then you could maybe drive all 3 stones at once. Then you engage them, and the same with the last one over here. The last course mill can also be connected, right?
Quite efficient.
It's actually very, yeah, it is. It's clear that the Dutch windmill, it has outcompeted the Watermills and the post mills. Yes. So that's basically the main drive in the mill, right, from the sails. Yes. Shall we go down and see the flour we've gotten out of it?
Yes, we can do that. With the spur wheel, gearing is introduced to the mills, which thus become much more efficient. The idea of gearing has remained a part of mills ever since, also in modern wind turbines.
This is wheat flour here, huh? Really nice.
Oh, it's fine.
It is, yes, it's just fine wheat flour.
It really is.
For some good rolls.
Yes, absolutely. White bread is included. Here in the mid-1700s, it's rye for rye bread and barley for malt, which is used for homemade beer that the farmers especially harvest and grind.
Well into the mid-1800s, if you talked about bread, it was rye bread. Rye is a good grain variety for our climate. Those were the white types known back then. Bread's ready.
But it's also during this time that things really begin to change. Danish agriculture is undergoing rapid development. Adscription is abolished, grain prices rise, corvée labor is ended, and now ordinary farmers can buy their own farms.
More and more farmers are buying their farms for freehold, and that again provides a huge incentive to do something about agriculture, to develop agriculture, right? Because as long as you were completely dependent on the landowner and you got neither more nor less out of it, then, well, why do anything special? But when you get the opportunities after 1830 or so, the farmers had much more money in their hands. It was also the time when alcoves were removed and you got bedrooms just like in the cities, and you got potted plants in the windows, which you hadn't had, and so on. So a very large development occurs, where life in the country approaches life in the city.
The development culminates in the mid-1800s, when absolutism is abandoned and we get our constitution. With the constitution, society, including business, becomes more liberal. One key change is the deregulation of the milling industry. Milling is no longer protected, so anyone can now build a grain mill. Over 100 years have passed, and suddenly there is white bread on the table. In fact, white bread is so fine that ordinary wheat bread is often called cake.
Here you go. We get a larger part of the population who do not grow grain themselves, and they must somehow get their bread. And therefore, many mills begin to sell flour, and that is the beginning of the type of trade that we still know today.
The life of the average Dane has changed radically over the last 150 years, from being self-sufficient and rye bread eating to being consumer-oriented and wheat eating. And it is also here at the end of the 1800s that the Danish grain mills really begin to struggle. But when does this mill stop?
This mill stopped making fine flour in the 1890s because someone actually started the steam mill located a bit further down Kørgevej. And that means he took all the flour customers from Ringsted Windmill. They switched to making grist, that is animal feed, and such grist for the pigs, and perhaps cleaning seed, doing that for the farmers. And they basically ran that until the early 1960s. Then there was no money in it, and it all died out, you could say, with the mill.
In the final years the historic mills operate, they produce animal feed. But it is a short-lived reprieve before farmers get alternatives they can manage themselves. But Lisa, why is it that these mills die out?
The farmers find out how to buy small wind pumps. Wind pumps are these small iron windmills that you can put on the barn roof, and then they can power a threshing machine and a grinder. But that means the farmer can make his own feed, and then he has no need to go to a water or windmill. And so you are left with a lot of empty mills that gradually disappear.
Today, there are 600 of the old historic mills left in Denmark. Of these, only 100 can actually run. Over 1,000 years, they and their technological development shaped Denmark. It may be that the historic mills are dead, but then there are these wind turbines, and they are exceptionally much alive these years. Join me next time as I hunt for the answer to who actually made the first electric wind turbine. What's up? I actually think it's much bigger than I expected. I mean, I also think it's because when you're driving, you can't see how big it actually is. I feel like it's 1 kilometer high, but of course it isn't. But maybe I'm also the world's smallest person, right? So everything just seems taller to me. It's quite meditative, isn't it? The way it turns. We've come out to look at these wind turbines, but what I'd really like to do is to find one of the first electric wind turbines and see what it actually looked like. And then I'd also really like to find out who the father of wind energy is. To find out who made the first electric wind turbine, I will work my way backwards through time. Every time I visit a mill, I'll find out which earlier mill it was inspired by. And so I will continue back in time until I end up with the inventor of the first electric wind turbine. I'm starting in the present day at Vestas in West Jutland. I am here, yes I am here, just as you asked, towards Ringkøbing. Just move over to the right. There, it says Vestas. Today, Vestas is known for its wind turbines. But just 50 years ago, Vestas hadn't made a single wind turbine. Back then, it was an overgrown blacksmith business making everything from appliances to farm equipment. So I want to try and find out what actually happened that got Vestas started making wind turbines. We're going to talk to someone named Anders from Vestas, who hopefully knows something about the development of turbines at Vestas. Thanks.
Just follow me, and what's important is this is a workshop now. Let's head over here. Yeah, just watch out for the forklift.
Okay.
Yeah, shall we go over here?
What's that big thing down there, Anders? Is that the nose or?
That right there, that's the nose, yes. That's the one we're starting on today to build a prototype for.
It's actually quite big.
Yes.
I just saw part of the nose in there and it looked wild. And I think I still have a hard time understanding how big it actually is. But it's starting to dawn on me a little bit now. Anders, how long have you actually been at Vestas?
Oh, I started in '83. So a lot has happened since I started. The blades were as short as 5 to 7 meters, and now they're 50-something up to 70 meters long. So there's been a huge development.
That's insane.
Yes, it's insane. Well, what you see here today is actually a very special day. It's the first day we're introducing our new Inventus turbine, our new 5.6 megawatt turbine. And we've just started, and if you'd come a week ago, you would have only seen a big construction site.
To understand how big and powerful the new turbine is, I've looked back in time a bit and found that the first turbines Vestas made were 15 kilowatts. That's enough to cover the consumption of between 1 and 1.5 average households. The new turbine is 5.6 megawatts. That's equal to about 400 of the old ones, or over 5,000 households having their electricity needs met. So it's a new giant turbine. If I wanted to know more about what turbines looked like before Vestas, then I figure you must know who knows something about that.
Well, I just mentioned before that I've been here for a very long time.
Yes.
But there's actually someone who's been here even longer, and he has one of the first turbines.
I've spoken with Anders, and I'm going to talk to someone named Beaver, and I actually got his number too.
Beaver.
Hi, Beaver. My name is Emma, and Anders, whom I just visited at Vestas, said I should talk to you. Is it possible for me to stop by? Yeah, I'd really love to hear a bit about, like, what was there before Vestas too, if you know anything about that. We're now on our way out to Beaver's to look at an early Vestas turbine. But what I don't know is that right there on Beaver's farm stood the turbine that would shape the entire Danish wind turbine world from 1979 onwards. Hi there, how are you? Where should we park? By the way, I've heard that you have an older turbine, is that right?
Yes, we absolutely do. We have a V16, just like that, which we installed here. And it went up in the year 1987, replacing an earlier turbine that we had before. The earlier turbine, the one that was there previously, was actually one my father himself put up way back in 1979. It was quite a significant moment for our family because it marked the beginning of our involvement with turbines.
The turbine erected in 79 was developed and built by two men, Carl Erik Jørgensen and Henrik Stesdal.
Carl Erik, who was the inventor and the blacksmith, then got help from Henrik Stesdal, who was an engineer, and they did a good job.
So how does Vestas come into the picture?
Vestas comes into the picture because Carl Erik and Henrik Stesdal can sort of see that more is needed to really take it further. And so as they look around the area, they notice that there is a factory over there, and that could actually be quite interesting. At that time, shortly after it went up, Vestas came over here and set up a caravan, so they did their testing here before they bought the rights.
So it's actually the turbine they looked at to make their own turbines?
Exactly right, yes.
It's actually pretty cool to have it standing there.
Yes.
And it's not just Vestas that gets deeply inspired by the turbine. There's actually another wind turbine company that does too.
Then one Saturday, someone else came along who was very interested in the turbine, and he went up to see it. Then 6 months later, my brother and I were at a youth fair in Herning and went down to where Bonus had a stand, and there was a turbine that was actually a carbon copy of this one. So you could say that what is now called Siemens also got their great inspiration from the same place again.
If I want to know more about the earlier turbines,
Henrik Stesdal would be a very good bet.
it's also quite fascinating actually that the exact same one standing right here at his place has been copied not just once but twice by both Vestas and Siemens. So it's really like the prototype for how they then took it even further. I now know how Vestas and Siemens began, and I therefore want to find the man behind the design of the turbine that inspired them in the late 70s. In the late 70s and throughout the 80s, there are plenty of wind turbine pioneers in Denmark. There's Christian Riesiger, for example, the first to connect a homemade turbine to the power grid. There's Eric Grove, the man who made some of the first fiberglass blades. And then there's my goal right now, the designer behind the turbine that inspired Vestas and Siemens. We're on our way to Henrik Stisdal's home, and I'm sure he can send me further back in time in my hunt for the man behind the first electric wind turbine. Hi.
It's this way in?
Yes.
Well, let me ask you, what do you say?
Well, I've been to Biver's place, and he mentioned you too. Do you have anything from back then that I can see?
I have something from before Biver's turbine, showing how it all actually started for me. Because it started with us making a very small handheld turbine. It's in here. I brought it out because you were coming, so we made this one, which we just cut out of a couple of boards we glued together. We thought you could hold it in your hand and go out in the wind, and then the wind would drive it, and then it took off like crazy. If there's a sudden gust of wind, it can pull forward and run away from you. Now it runs at about 100 kilometers per hour at the blade tip. Then you really have something alive in your hands. And then I was sold, yes, and then I got a taste for it, thinking I must be able to build a real turbine. Let's take a look. I have a few paper photos, yes. Here's one where the blade for the first turbine is being made, yes. That's where we're installing it in the morning, just before it's lifted by the crane. And then my father and I are standing there taking stock of the situation. It's June 28th, 1978, 10 meters in diameter and 12 meters high. Then I got in touch with a blacksmith, Carl Erik, who lived nearby and could make some things I couldn't make myself. And then I designed what you'd call a production version. We discovered that a nearby company that made agricultural wagons and truck cranes, Vestas, was apparently also interested in wind power. And then I called them, and after a short conversation, they bought the license for what we had developed. That's how I got started making turbines, and that's really how the industry began to take off.
You must have been inspired by something. I mean, what was it that ignited that spark in you?
Well, we basically started from a combination of something with nuclear power, which I thought was a bit spooky, and then the fact that after the oil crisis in 1973, it had actually become very, very expensive to buy oil and power for our farm, Then my father said, you know what, let's go up and visit the Tivin schools because they're building a huge turbine there. And I found that incredibly inspiring that some young people just like me, they could tackle that and just start from scratch. Yes, and I thought that was always how you should do it, and that's why I got started.
The next time you have to drive, you should drive down that one. In my hunt for the man behind the first electric wind turbine, I've now reached about 45 years back in time and a completely insane turbine project. We're going up to see the twin turbine.
The eyes of the whole world are on Iran, and with anxiety, the final result is awaited in the extremely dangerous.
In the early 70s, the so-called oil crisis arises. There's a shortage of oil and gasoline, and that means car-free Sundays and low temperatures in the shower. As the reporter on the TV news says,
it's cold, and in that way, many of us are reminded early in the morning that we have an oil crisis in this country.
And the temperatures have also been lowered.
With the oil crisis, Denmark prepares to use nuclear power. But then an entire resistance movement emerges.
This is radioactive waste.
Not least in Tvind. Tvind is a school collective that in the early 70s buys a property near Ulfborg in Jutland. And it's also here that they start building their turbine. Because with higher oil prices, the Tvind school's expenses rise. So to keep course prices down, a group of teachers decides to make a wind turbine with their own savings. Over 3 years, the volunteer turbine team at Tvind builds what was at that time, by far, the world's largest wind turbine.
We've never seen such a large wind turbine before.
Ooh, isn't that it out there? Yes, it actually looks like, and it's a bit trippy, it looks like something from Tintin. It really does. I mean, that rocket, it's red and white checkered. Could that be the guy we're supposed to meet? Hello there. Hi there, how are you?
Hi there.
Do you think I could talk to someone who knows how the twin turbine was built? The man I just met is calling someone else who helped build the twin turbine. And when he arrives, we can go up inside the turbine.
Hi, Bjorn.
Hi.
Look, we just got some guests here, and you should tell them a bit about the wind turbine. I just need to go up and yaw it into the wind.
Go right ahead. We started all of this on May 29th, 1975. All in all, it took 3 years, which was actually fast. No one in the world had ever tried to build anything like this before, you know, anything similar. It reaches 53 meters up into the air, and each blade is 27 meters long, so the blade tip is up at 80 meters. This here is the entire base, the very beginning of the bottom of the tower. And in here, that's the tower itself sticking up into the air. And the space between there and there, that's where we're walking now. We're standing inside this part. As for weight and such, well, the entire turbine weighs 1,700 tons. But take a look at this. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
That's a Volkswagen, you know it, a Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah.
That's the gearbox. So that gives you a sense of the scale there.
Okay, that's actually quite wild to see.
Yeah, it's big, isn't it? What you can see there is my head.
All up there?
Yes. And then there, I'm sitting inside the hub. You can see my white hat in there. There was only room for one person out in the hub to receive the blades. There's so much safety involved with this. It simply cannot break down.
Okay.
So you know you should completely relax. I mean, we've been riding up and down in it.
Yes, now we're up in the nacelle.
So what we have here is the entire main shaft. You can look out and see the blades spinning past out here. But it's this shaft here that it sort of holds the entire hub. And then all these things rotate. These are all the safety measures in place. In terms of being able to pitch the blades in and out of the wind, that's the kind of thing they only introduced much, much later on other turbines. So in that way, it was very far ahead technologically. And then the power comes from the blades, then the power goes through here. And then it goes behind there and into the gearbox. Now we're on top of the gearbox here, right?
Yes.
And there you can see the shaft, how slowly it's turning there compared to over here. See, that's the gearing.
Yes, sure.
Because to generate electricity, we need to have it spinning a bit faster. And then the generator is over there. It generates the electricity there, right?
I see.
That's how it works, right?
Yes.
Right. You need to get some revolutions going to generate the power, right?
All modern wind turbines today are basically built like the T-wind turbine. The blades turn a shaft that goes into the gearbox. Inside, the speed is changed, so the shaft behind the gearbox runs at a much higher pace. And that shaft then goes into a generator that produces electricity. It's fascinating to stand and watch how it all goes around and that it's being converted into power. Wow, man.
If you stick your head all the way out, you can see the blades.
Oh yeah, I can see it now. Yeah. It's just absolutely, truly fascinating. Really, it's incredible. Björn, what was it that inspired the T-wind turbine?
What was around at that time, right? It was the Gedser turbine. And the Gedser turbine, that was damn big. It was something we looked at and saw. What can we use from there?
Now I'll just try to see if I can maybe find something. But, well, you see, as a matter of fact, it actually doesn't exist anymore, the Gedser turbine. It's simply been taken down. My hunt for Denmark's first electric wind turbine, and the man behind it has stalled. I started in the present with the modern giant turbines and have gone back about 60 years in time to the Gedser turbine, which has unfortunately been torn down. Since I can't visit the Gedser turbine, I have to come up with something else instead. So I'm looking for an expert who might be able to help me further in the hunt for the man behind the first electric wind turbine. I find someone named Christian Nielsen who might know something about the Gedser turbine. Hi there, how are you?
Hi, Emma. Good to see you. How have you been?
So, Christian, what can you tell me about the Gedser turbine?
Well, the Gedser Mill is from 1957, and it was built primarily by Johannes Juul, who was a department engineer at SEAS, that is the Southeast Zealand Energy Supply Company. Johannes Juul was something of an inventor type, and he was one of the pioneers in wind power, not just in Denmark, but actually in the whole world. And then after World War II, when there were major problems with energy supply, he came to think about whether it didn't make sense for a small country like Denmark, a small country where it's very windy, to bet on wind power. At that time, the centralized electricity supply network had begun to spread across large parts of the country. And then Johannes Juul thought, what if we connect the wind turbines to the electricity supply grid? He really thought big and had great ideas for wind power. By the way, I have a picture of the Gedser Mill, if you're interested in seeing it.
I'd love to.
Yes, look here. There's the Gedser Mill at its inauguration in 1957. I mean, all wind turbines today basically have 3 blades.
So he came up with the idea for 3 blades?
That's Johannes Juul's idea. He's standing right here. And the Gedser Mill stood there for 10 years and produced electricity for the power grid.
And since you say stood, that also means it's not there today?
Yes, it's not there today. The wind turbine tower itself and the blades are at the Energy Museum in Tange. They've been preserved.
That means if I go to the Energy Museum, then I can actually see part of the Gedser Mill.
You can see some of it. You can see the blades. You can see the nacelle.
Well, I'd like to see that. So up here, you should, just go ahead and turn your body out towards the water, right? Lille Møllevej, we're going to hopefully see one of the first electric wind turbines and hear a bit about Johannes Juul. Maybe he's the first one who made an electric wind turbine in Denmark. That must be something from a wind turbine, I think, maybe over there. Ooh, isn't that one of those things you get a shock from? Is that what gives you a shock? Do you know, excuse me, can I ask you something?
Yes.
Do you know where Jit is?
I think she's gone home.
Has she gone home? Well, I really hope not. She said she was here. I think so. Hi. Are you Jita?
I'm Jitta,
Hi, I'm Emma.
but we're going outdoors.
We're going outside?
Yes, we have a large wind turbine lying down here on the ground, which, by the way, is also directly related to the well-known Gedser turbine, is something quite interesting to observe.
Yes, what kind is it?
It's one of the world's first offshore wind turbines, 1991. And the principle of those wind turbines is actually the same as the Gedser turbine, but it's just made of a different material. The blades are made of fiberglass, and it has these rotating blade tips as well, just like the Gedser turbine has.
Yes. Oh, and is that the one here?
That's the one we have here, yes.
And why is it that the Gedser turbine specifically is so groundbreaking? Why is it the grandmother of the modern wind turbine?
It is because, among other things, it has 3 blades, and the blades are in a fixed position. It also has these rotating tips at the ends. They simply rotate, and that helps to break the blade if it blows more than 25 meters per second. And finally, it has a red ball that falls down if there are vibrations in the tower. We can go up and take a look at it.
Yes.
It has some important safety features in place that meant it kept running for 10 years without tearing itself apart. Other large wind turbines around the world didn't last as long. Look in there, Emma. On a string, there's a red ball hanging.
Oh, yes.
And it would, if the turbine were actually running right now, you would see it up there, positioned on that little platform that is sticking out from the side.
Yes, sure.
And then if there were vibrations in the tower, the ball fell down. And it's connected to a switch. When it's pulled down, it's disconnected, and it was subsequently copied and used as a circuit breaker in many of the first wind turbines when they started building in the 1970s and 80s.
And was Johannes Juul the first to make such an electric wind turbine?
He wasn't. He was the first to make wind turbines that could produce alternating current, but he wasn't the first to make an electric wind turbine. Look here. He was actually a student of Poul, who was a teacher down at Askov Folk High School. Poul was the first who built wind turbines that could generate electricity. And we can see Johannes Juul here as a very young man.
And he looks very, very young.
He is very young. He was actually only 17 years old. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, Jutta has actually informed me who made the very first electric wind turbine. And it's apparently a guy named Poul. And there's actually a museum. So I would, of course, really like to go down and see if I can get to see the first electric wind turbine there.
We are in one of the leading countries in wind power, and I'd actually like to know how it all started. I've been driving around West Jutland for several days in search of Denmark's first electric wind turbine, and not least the man behind it. I started with the newest, largest turbines. I actually think it's much bigger than I expected, and I've since been sent around most of West Jutland. We're going to talk to someone named Anders. We're going to talk to someone named Biver. We're on our way to Henrik Stisdal's home. But finally, after a few more mill visits, it actually looks like, and this is a bit surreal, it looks like something from Tintin. So this is the Watermill.
That's the one we have here, yes.
I finally found the man behind the first electric wind turbine.
Poul was the first to build wind turbines that could generate electricity.
We are going to Askov, which, as you can see, is located right over there, just a short distance away from where we are now. We're on our way to Askov. Now, we've been driving around for a couple of days in Jutland and have also found out who made the first electric wind turbine now. His name is Poul, so I'm going down to see where he conducted his experiments. And then I'd like to find out who Poul actually was. And then it's perhaps even more important to get to see one of the first electric wind turbines. If I could get to see the very first electric wind turbine, that would be incredibly cool.
Hello, welcome to the Poul Museum. Thank you. I'm Arne. Who was Poul? He was a scientist, actually a meteorologist, who came to Askov in 1878 to teach at the Folk High School. Then he got the idea to see if wind energy in Denmark could be used. No one before him had ever done that. That's a picture of Poul with his Grundtvigian hat on. Yes, it was high.
Grundtvigians like Cour are Christians, but they believe that faith in God is no more important than we humans are. To get an idea of who Poul is, I get Arne to show me around what was once Poul's everything, his workshops. This here.
This was Poul's machine workshop, where they themselves very carefully manufactured many of the things that were needed for their work.
What is it you've turned on?
It's Poul's lathe.
With the belt and everything? Yes, they
are just ordinary old belt drives. And that's also what was used around the farms when you had to thresh, for example, from this electric motor, which started up after. some.
Is there something that can run? La Cour doesn't just work with mills and electricity. His workshops are a gold mine of inventions and strange things. You don't know what that is, do you? No, we have...
So many things that we
barely know
what they have been used for in various situations.
It's a bit of a strange mix of a woodworking room mixed with a physics and chemistry room where everything just goes crazy. These must have been...
The exciting, delicious nuts for the mills, ready to enjoy.
Yes, and Poul used these.
Right, they've been used here, yes.
That's also what's so cool, right? I mein, that you can see that he's the one who used it. Yes, it's a
truly powerful and incredibly versatile tool.
One could also say that Poul probably wasn't weak at all, because it really does weigh quite a bit. It's honestly so cool. It's quite wild. It's in 1891 that Poul starts up with his mills. At that time, City Hall Square in Copenhagen looks like this. It's a time of horse-drawn carriages, trams, and bicycles. There isn't much electricity in Copenhagen. Gas lamps are used for street lighting, and it's only the following year that Copenhagen gets its very first electric street lamps. In the countryside, they still plow with oxen. Water is something pulled up from a well. And the mills look like this. So when Poul starts making electricity with wind turbines, he is far ahead of his time.
Now you're entering the heart of it, the heart of Poul workshop. And this is where you can imagine that the large wind turbine stood right above here. I mean...
Up on the roof?
Yes.
How did Poul begin to be able to store this energy?
The dynamo was located right here.
Yes, of course.
And when the windmill starts up and drives the dynamo, they produce electricity, which he then leads down to the hydrogen cellar. Now you're going underground, yes. Now you'll see...
Hello, everyone. Welcome all.
Those copper pipes through which the electrical current came down, which he then carefully leads onward out to all these insulators. And there used to be more of them. And then he leads them through to the hydrogen tanks, and there were 10 electrolysis tanks lined up along here. He ran it like that until about 1902, when they got batteries that were good enough to store the electricity in. And that's when he came up with the idea to create small power stations. And this is where he decided to bring light into the houses of Askov. And from then on, the experimental mill became Askov's power plant in 1902. And he could use batteries like these. It's
crazy. These are huge batteries, right? If you know a bit about batteries, you can actually see that's what they are. There are 2 poles and so on. I just think it's wild to see how it has developed.
And there would have been a smell of sulfuric acid in here.
So it was actually back in 1902 that La Cour really got his very first electric windmill going. And over the next 6 years alone, he managed to start up and operate over 20 smaller wind power plants all across the country. This
was Poul office. This is his
desk. It is
his desk, and that was his cabinet.
Means that what he created in here, in the structure, it's his idea, and it's what he was truly interested in. It's actually quite amazing to see. And you can see what he really taught. There are different mill designs, and the power plant in Askov.
And
small electricity plants. Look, there's actually one just about the experimental mill. I find it fascinating when you can actually talk about these things. If you imagine that Poul, he also sat here and wrote, I imagine him as a man who worked constantly. He
did.
So, this desk has certainly been well used over the years. I think Poul was truly a man who found almost everything genuinely interesting. I also think of him a bit as a local leader. He brought light to Askov and even installed running water and so on. It's absolutely wild, truly remarkable. Poul, a fascinating historical figure, describes himself in the following way. Among those who know me well, many people will surely find that I am a rather strange and unusual mix of physicist and humanist. I am someone who both thinks deeply and feels strongly, and that is absolutely true. Well,
if it's in the Grundtvigian tradition, then he also took the time to sit and enjoy the landscape. One should do that too. I mean, the Danish landscape, we are quite close to the border, right? So it's not long after 1864. He was probably well aware of that.
Even though La Cour probably enjoyed the Danish landscape and the silence, there is always another side of him working on the technical aspects. And in Denmark, he is also called Denmark's Edison. He invents both an improvement to the telegraph, so more can Morse at the same time. He creates the brilliant cratostat, and then he develops what he calls the ideal mill, the perfect windmill for producing electricity. The mill is also commonly called a Klapsejler.
This is the development of Poul Cour's mills, this new Klapsejler here. So that is what he calls the ideal mill.
So Arnie, the Klapsejler, that's like the precursor to the modern electric wind turbine?
That's for sure, yes.
Do you know where I can find one of those? Well, yes? Hi. I actually heard you have a Klapsejler. Yes, could you maybe tell me a bit more about it?
That's exactly it. Let me show you an example. Here's one, a tower, which you can see here. This tower is from around 1910, so it has been standing for more than 100 years. You can notice some of the details in its design that were typical of that time period. Does that make sense?
A flap sail windmill like that, which is a bit like what La Cour made?
Yes, this one is a flap sail. You can't see it yet. We need to look at the rest of it.
Well, it certainly looks like something. I mean, I am not exactly sure what it is, but there is definitely something there.
That's right, exactly.
The wings lying there, right?
Yes, they are long.
The ones with the boards. Could see how it could run and was
assembled. We can't quite help you with that. But I think we should go back to where we actually started this area. So this is the part that actually goes up on the tower along with the seat. This is where the wing is placed. It sits right out here. There are 6 of them in total. It's really a wing that's just hanging up almost as if it's suspended by a single piece of string. And then on that wing, you'll see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 flaps. What makes it special is that if you pull something by that rod over there, you see what you can do is you can sort of open the flap so the wind just rushes right through the mill. Or if you want, you can close it. So now the mill is ready to catch the wind and start turning. This meant that if it blew too much, if the wind was really strong, it could also open up by itself automatically without anyone touching it. And it's actually a good thing that a mill doesn't just run wild and spin out of control. That's every miller's nightmare, I can tell you. And it's something they always worry about. Open and close, that's what the flap does. And a flap sail, well, that's a uniquely Danish phenomenon, something you really only find here in Denmark. And it's a clever invention that makes these mills special.
Well, it's also incredibly smart that it does it itself.
Now, at this point, La Cour wanted to build mills that could generate electricity. These mills had to be much bigger than before. Now, take a look here. This right here is just one single flap.
That's just one flap.
Only on La Cour's standard windmill, there were a total of 15 flaps. Those flaps were on each wing, 15 of this size.
How big does it get then? I mean, the wingspan?
Well, the wingspan ends up being something like 12 to 15 meters.
Kurt, I had kind of hoped that I could see an assembled flap sail, see it running.
Yeah, I can't promise you that. I don't even know if I can tell you where there's one still running. Is
that true? Are there simply no more flap sails left?
No, I am afraid their time has already passed.
I would have liked to see it for real. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's rusty. It's just that I'd like to see it assembled, because otherwise, I don't get the big picture of how wind turbines have evolved. I had hoped that a flap sail could show me how talented Poul actually was, and maybe I could see some of the features that inspired modern wind turbines. Instead, I must now find a person who can show me how important Poul innovative shutter sail windmill has truly been for the development and advancement of wind turbines. It's raining, and the weather has turned quite bad. During the evening, I found out that at Risø on the island of Zealand, a so-called wind tunnel has been built, which is actually named after Poul himself. We're going to Risø. There, they research wind energy. I'm curious to find out just how skilled Poul truly was at building windmills. When Cour set out to develop his ideal windmill, he approached the task in a scientific and methodical way. He constructed what are called wind tunnels. These are special tubes where he could carefully control the wind. With these wind tunnels, he was able to investigate and experiment with how an ideal windmill should be designed and what it should look like.
Hi, come on in.
Thanks. Is it true that you have a tunnel named after Poul Cour?
That's exactly right. It's called the Poul Tunnel.
And why is it that it's named after Poul Cour?
Because Poul Cour was actually the first in the world to research wind energy, and because he was actually one of the first to ever build a wind tunnel. The tunnel itself here is actually 65 meters long, and where we are right now, it's up here on the second floor. We have channels where we have the channel where air flows. This is where we look down at the test section itself.
So what is it you test down there?
Those are wing sections from wind turbine blades. Down there, speeds can reach up to 400 kilometers per hour. We should go down and take a look, but before we do that, maybe we could just go over and look at the fan over there.
That?
You see there's a fan, it drives the air through the tunnel. It's very detailed work here.
Is it?
Yes, absolutely. That is correct, of course, definitely.
What is this now?
Christian, these are called guide vanes, which are designed to ensure that the flow of air becomes smooth and steady as it moves around the corner. If you look very closely, and if you're quite observant, you might be able to see into the test section here. You can actually see a bit of light in there. Now we're going into the wind tunnel itself, and then after that, we'll go over to this particular part of a wing that we have set up here, that we've now tested in the wind tunnel.
What exactly did Poul Cour find out?
He tested wind turbine rotors in different ways. This is a model of a windmill, similar to the ones he worked with. He scaled the windmills down to this size, so he could test things like this in the wind tunnel. There are some windmills in the United States that have a lot of blades. He found out that it probably was not particularly efficient with all those blades. In reality, they really should spin quite fast. There honestly should not be quite so many blades. And they should also be just a bit more narrow and actually try to create a kind of suction on the blade.
By giving the blades a specific shape with some bends here and there, Cour discovers that he can make a mill that utilizes nature's forces better. It's about controlling the wind pressure.
The wind comes in from here, creates high pressure here and low pressure, and then it's sucked around in some funny way. He finds out that for them to be efficient, it's best that they're sucked around. So wind turbines nowadays are sucked around and not pushed around. So it was actually quite groundbreaking that he could find and empirically find how to even make a windmill that starts to look like the windmills made.
Today, yes, it's the precursor to our electric wind turbine.
That is exactly right. I completely agree with what you just said, and I could not have put it any better myself. Your explanation matches my own thoughts perfectly, and I want to emphasize that you are absolutely correct in every detail. There is nothing I would change or add because your understanding is spot on. In short, yes, exactly.
Yes, what is the good news you wanted to tell me? Is there a shutter sail happening or is it something else?
Kurt just called me a little while ago and he told me something, but he did not give me all the details. I am really curious to know what you have to say, so please, go ahead and tell me more about it. He told me that there is a shutter sail here in Jutland at the Motor Historical Collection, which is located near Grenna. Right now, I am on Zealand, so if I want to see this shutter sail, I actually have to travel all the way from Zealand to Grenna. That is quite a trip, but I am willing to make it because the shutter sail is part of a broader development that I find really interesting. This kind of thing is exactly what I am passionate about. When I first started studying history, it felt natural for me to choose a course that focused on these kinds of developments, so I signed up for a class that explored the evolution of technology and its impact. That is why I am so interested in seeing the shutter sail in person. In medieval kingdoms to Roman provinces, no one had chosen Danish agricultural history. We found out that those in the agricultural history class knew more and more about Denmark and its development because they looked at things on a human level. That was something the rest of us lacked. It's a bit like the plow. It sounds incredibly uninteresting, but it's also incredibly important for the development of the Danish agricultural society. You know, it really just goes to show how something that might at first seem incredibly boring or uninteresting is, in reality, actually extremely important and significant when we talk about the development and progress in Denmark as a whole. Oh, is that it? Is that the shutter sail over there? Yes, it's definitely a shutter sail. The motor collection in Grenna, which is quite impressive, has over 300 fully restored motors and engines on display in their halls. They're known for saving and restoring the most broken down machines, and the harder it is, the better. And now they've also restored what I'm interested in, a Klapsejler windmill. Hi, well, you've been involved in making the Klapsejler.
I've been involved in making the Klapsejler, yes, but all the steel has been replaced, and then we've made new wooden flaps, which we've rough sawn at our sawmill over there. 9 flaps on each wing, and they're all different shapes. It's been quite a project.
And what's inside the house?
Let's go and take a look together. Now, as we step inside, we're entering the mill house. This is where you can see all the old machinery that makes the mill work. Right here, you'll notice this rod, which is used to close the flaps. When you use the rod to close the flaps, it's an important part of getting the mill started. Once the flaps are closed, the mill begins to spin around, just as it was designed to do, and that's how the whole process gets going. Or open it so it stands still again. And the way those flaps are hinged actually means that centrifugal force, even now, makes it run at about 25 revolutions per minute. I think that's very well calculated for 1915, which is when it's from. And you know, when you really think about it, it's quite impressive that such precise engineering was achieved back then, considering the technology available at the time.
Put it down there, now I'm
just putting it right down there, as you asked. Then the thing suddenly starts spinning around, turning in circles.
Does this mill generate power?
Not yet. We have a plan for the future, and that's on this side of our little mill house where a dynamo will be placed, which can then produce 110 volts of direct current. Well,
you can see that the flaps are closed now.
The flaps are definitely closed, yes. And after that, it actually spins all the way around, just like you see here.
And that Klapsejler, it would normally be on a farm, right?
It stood on a farm on top of the barn roof, because then you could both make chaff, which is food for the horse, and run a threshing machine to knock the grain off the straw. And if you were a bit more well off and further along, you could also generate power with it.
I think it's really, really beautiful. Truly beautiful. I mean, really beautiful. You might not think of a mill as aesthetically beautiful, but this one is actually quite nice.
Yes, it is quite nice. They've thought a bit about the design too, yes.
It's been an absolutely fantastic journey through the history of the mill, but also in a way through Denmark's history. On my trip, I've gone through 1,000 years of mill development, from the first watermills to the large grain mills, and then to Poul and the start of the Danish adventure with electric wind turbines. It's also evolved from being a really nerdy guy sitting at a folk high school, something as archetypically Danish as a folk high school, who discovers that wind energy can be used to generate power.
And then as we continued further through time, there were moments when people would laugh a little bit, almost as if to say, yeah, wind energy, what can you actually use that for? That was a pretty common reaction back then. Then the conversation shifted, moving from the days of people saying no to nuclear power and the story of Tvind, to a time when wind energy became just completely accepted by everyone. It was no longer questioned, and of course we have wind energy now. It's honestly incredibly impressive and quite remarkable that we here in Denmark were able to come up with that idea and